Blog Talk Radio.
This is the PFS Global Support Podcast. Our mission is to provide support, guidance, and coping strategies for men afflicted with the condition known as post-Finasteride syndrome. While this is a new condition, medical research is currently working to find out more about this syndrome and hopefully a cure. The podcast, its listeners, and the victims of PFS would also like to reach out to Merck Pharmaceuticals. They are the manufacturers of Finasteride, and we believe they have an ethical and moral obligation to help the men damaged by their drug. Donations can be made to the PFS Foundation, which is not affiliated with this podcast. The PFS Global Support Podcast is an independent production of men afflicted by PFS. The PFS Foundation is a 501c not-for-profit corporation, and donations made to the foundation are tax-deductible. Visit pfsfoundation.org for more information. And now, on to the show with your host, Adam Held.
Good morning and welcome to the PFS Global Support Podcast. This podcast is made by PFS victims for PFS victims. PFS stands for post-Finasteride syndrome. For this podcast, we ask that the men that come on the podcast to tell their stories. While we understand that the symptoms, the side effects, the devastation that this condition can cause are very personal, we respect the right of each man that tells the story to use a pseudonym if he chooses. I use my real name because I am tired of the culture of silence that surrounded this condition, that surrounded the true dangers of this drug. If more men would have spoken up, there was a chance that I might have known what I was doing to my body while I took Propecia. Unfortunately, I didn't have that opportunity, and I find now that it would be hypocritical for me not to tell as many people, as many men, about the dangers of this drug. With that being said, I don't expect the same of my guests. If they choose to use their name, that is fine, the real name. We also would ask all guests to tell the truth, as close to the truth as possible. The side effects, the damage that this drug does to both your body, to your psyche, relationships, to your career, are very real, are devastating, and it's easy to place blame for other misfortunes in your life on Propecia, so we ask that men stick to the story, they tell the truth, and try as much as possible not to exaggerate. Third statement about our show is it's not a legal show. While we ask, as always, that Merck help us, and we are willing to work with Merck, we understand that there is litigation, as they sold the drug without warning in Europe, with warning of permanent side effects in Europe, and left that warning off the U.S. label for almost 3 years. We ask that they would do the right thing and help us figure out what this drug did to us. Today's episode is connection between castration and PFS. We know a lot about PFS, so we're learning more about PFS. We don't know a lot about it, but there currently is research taking place at Harvard and in Baylor universities, respectively, to understand the underpinnings of this disease, of this condition. We do know the side effects all too well. Not all PFS victims have these side effects. I personally have some. I have some that I don't have. But in general, these are some of the side effects. And for my castration information, I'm using a form. It's been very helpful for me in dealing with this condition over the last year. I'm just now back to mental stability after 2 years of utter hell. There's no way to put it. Anyone that goes through PFS knows, some men commit suicide. It's just devastating. The change in your hormone levels, the change in your neurosteroid levels, what it does to your own view of yourself as a man is just, words cannot put it properly. But I found this unic.org, that's EUNUCH.org. About a year ago, it really helped me through some of the hardest times, some of the darkest times when I thought I would just end it. These men are castrated primarily by choice, whether it be for prevention of cancer, prostate and testicular cancer, or for transgender things like that. But they've been supportive, and they understand our condition. So I would recommend, if you're a PFS victim and you're looking for more support, sign up for eunuch.org. The men there understand what we're going through and can offer solace. Castration comes in two forms. There's physical castration, and then there's chemical castration. Both of them happen to serve a singular purpose, which is to reduce or lower the effect of testosterone in the body. And when men with PFS get the testosterone levels measured, for most of them it's a normal level of testosterone. It's something broken in the chain from testosterone to the byproduct. Something is, either the body's not recognizing the testosterone, the receptors are broken, or one of the enzymes, maybe the 5-alpha reductase, is still broken. We're not sure, but as I said, Harvard and Baylor, and hopefully soon more research institutions will start looking into this. But we do know that the end result of PFS is that the body acts as if testosterone levels are low. Castration, we'll start with the symptoms, the physical symptoms, and the main physical symptom is a loss of fertility for a castrated man. I'm not able to have babies. And it turns out that recent research in the Journal of Fertility and Sterility, a December 2013 article, came to the conclusion that some men on finasteride experience an extreme loss of sperm motility, an extreme loss of seminal volume that does not return in some men after stopping finasteride. This was another additional fact that was left off the label, and research is now finding that finasteride has a major impact on the fertility of the men taking it, just as castration does. Other changes with castration include a reduction in libido. I experienced this. I've gone from probably, in a month, 60 to 70 sexual experiences, 2 to 3 a day, to maybe 4 or 5 a month, or 4 or 5 a week. I do date, but I date more to stave off loneliness than to have sex. In fact, it's been a while since I've had sex, and I don't care, which was not true of the pre-Propecia version of myself. And I know many men struggle with this because it's frustrating. As a young man, it's frustrating. All castrates, not all castrates, experience erectile dysfunction. Most do, just as most men with PFS experience erectile dysfunction, but not all do. In addition, a lack of nocturnal erections occurs. And the combination of these two side effects leads to a loss in size of the penis, as that lack of expansive activity on a daily basis can lead to loss of girth and length. And many men with PFS complain about this symptom. For castrates, there is a loss of body hair, a thinning of body hair, as well as a loss of muscle mass, and a change in body morphology. This is a very common complaint, and these are side effects that I experienced, that muscle is no longer easy to gain, that we become more feminine in our bodies. I know I have weight gain on my hips. I've never had that, and I still to this day maintain a pretty rigorous exercise regimen, as well as eating a reduced calorie diet, but I weigh about 15 pounds more than I did before I took Propecia, and I can't really lose that weight, and it just sits right on my hips and kind of in my chest where my breasts are. Many men have this as well. castrates and PFS victims. For castrates, increased fatigue and loss of physical stamina, and also a change in metabolism. This is very common complaint of PFS victims. They feel less energetic, less motivated. And what's interesting, one of the side effects that's hardest for PFS victims to deal with is what is come to be known as brain fog. And the brain fog among the PFS victims, that's actually a symptom. On unic.org, they say this, I'll read this paragraph here verbatim. That may also occur among men experiencing loss of testosterone, changes in cognitive capacities, including memory loss, the change in spatial reasoning abilities, among others. Greater emotional lability may be observed, with depression being more commonly observed. There may occur increases in depressed and irritable mood, reduced motivation and goal setting, and declines in initiative and assertion, a loss of interest in things previously found rewarding. And this is an extremely common symptom, not only of castrates, but also of men dealing with PFS. Longer term, we can look towards the eunuch community and see that osteoporosis and type 2 diabetes have a very high incidence among castrated men, as PFS is a new, quote-unquote, new disease, a new condition. This might be something that victims of PFS should look for and take steps to prevent in the future in the case that there is no cure, in the case that this is a permanent condition and that we have to adjust our lifestyles to deal with this. Towards that end, and so as I look at this unic.org, it's a great article, really open-minded. I really opened my eyes to how many similarities there are between myself, the PFS victims, and castrates. And it's interesting. We will eventually, in a few weeks, have Dr. Michael Irwig on as a guest. He was the researcher at George Washington University that a few years ago published kind of the groundbreaking paper, the first PFS paper to really dive into what's happening to these men. He's going to talk to us about the future of PFS research, possible cures, and what we can do in the meantime to kind of help ourselves. There is no treatment for PFS as of now. Many men who take testosterone, and that's the main difference. And I want to reinforce this idea. Castration is reversible in the sense that a castrated man at any time he chooses can take testosterone replacement therapy and will regain sexual function, libido, sensation in the penis, all the things that he had pre-castration. A man with PFS does not have that as an option. Most men that take TRT, for whatever mechanism this disease works by, men who take TRT, it's either ineffective or it even further worsens their state instead of helping them. It's almost as if the body has become resistant to testosterone. And that's the hardest thing about this disease, is not only is there no cure, there is no treatment. And to sentence a young man in this way, I find to be honestly that can be bestowed upon someone. There's no precedent for this type of disease in history. Prior to Finasteride, there was no way that you could artificially shut down a man like this. And yet now here we are, thousands of us around the world. But we here at PFS Global Support are here for you. So please, if you have any questions, you can always call the show at 718-508-9136. You can email the show at pfsglobalsupportpodcast@gmail.com, and any donations can be made to the pfsfoundation.org, which is not affiliated with this website. Next week we'll have Paul Ennis, a PFS victim from England, to talk about his story. And again, I implore you, if you are suicidal because of your PFS, please reach out to the show or reach out to the forum.